Hey everyone, this is Randy from BibleBuyingGuide.com. Today I'm taking a look at the ESV Preaching Bible Verse by Verse edition from Crossway. This is a goatskin edition made in China, 9.75 point font, single column verse by verse. Let's take a look. This is very similar to the Preaching Bible that came out in 2019, with the exception of it being a verse by verse rather than a paragraph. So we have goatskin leather with a pebbly green, slightly thinner leather than the previous edition. Perimeter stitching, 1, 2, 3, 4 spine hubs with gold stamping on the spine, 2 ribbons, 1/4 inch ribbons, and sewn binding with black and gold head tail bands, and then leather liner with a gilt line around the inside. That feels elegant. I like the look and feel of that. Edge lined. The edge line tab is slightly stiff. And then we have a vinyl coated end sheet. And then our tabbed in glued sheet. That's on purpose. A little bit stiff, but not too bad. The paper is 36 GSM. Now, this paper feels a little different from the original Preaching Bible paper. The reason is this has a coating that I don't think the original had. We'll compare them in just a little bit. It's easy enough to grab and turn, and I like to rub the pages together to open. Seems to be easy enough. Let's see. It does have a little bit of show through under certain light, but it's not bad at all. The font itself, they call it a 9.75, but it does look the same as the original Preaching Bible. It's about a 10, and it does look good. 14 words per line, and it has enough space between the lines, which actually looks like it's a little bit more than the original Preaching Bible. Enough space between the lines that I don't get lost. So by the time I get all the way over here, I don't have to figure out where I left off over here to know the next line. It's easy to keep track. So we have indented verses with extra large verse numbers and extra space between the verse number and the verse. So that helps them stand out. It makes them a lot easier to find. I would like to see them in red, but that's me. But across the bottom, we have our translation footnotes. And the footnote keys are kind of small, and they're within the text, but they don't stand out. So I don't get lost while I'm trying to read. Well, I don't get distracted when I'm trying to preach from this. There's one of them there. It's not too bad distracting. Now, where a paragraph starts within a verse, it will give you another paragraph marker in the verse itself. I'll show you that in just a minute. Then across the top, we have the book name, chapter and verse number, and then page number. Let's see, we have some margin space. 1 1/4 inch margin on the outside, and it's hard to tell here, but 3/4 of an inch of a margin on the inside. No poetic setting. It doesn't have indented letters or anything like that. Does stay open easy. I haven't written in it. I don't want to write in it just to be writing. It is printed with line matching, mostly. There might be a few pages where it's not quite perfect, but it does look good. The section headings are in semi-bold in italics. They're easy enough to ignore, and they're also easy enough to use, whichever you need. This is excellent for preaching. Love preaching from this. Black letter text. So there's our New Testament in black letter. And I will show you a verse with a paragraph marker inside the verse. 1 Corinthians 14, 33, 34 is always a good place to look because they put a paragraph marker in 33. In a standard ESV, this starts the next paragraph, and 34 is part of the sentence. So you can see there how the sentences cut. Now, one thing I also like about the way they do this, when the verse number, where verses continue the previous sentence, they start with a lowercase letter rather than a capital letter. I like that. It does help improve readability a little bit there. The typical edge line hump is noticeable. It's not bad though. Not bad at all. It's just noticeable. Table of weights and measures. And then our concordance. 2,400 word entries. 10,000 scripture references. Seems to be a decent concordance. I have more information on this concordance in the written review. I always go into more detail in the written review. I just do that because I'm a writer. Let's see how many it has here for God. If I can learn my alphabet there for a second. So there's how many entries we have for God. Quite a bit. Quite a bit. And then after the concordance, we have 10 pages. 10 blank pages for notes. This is the regular Bible paper. They're not lined or anything like that, so you can put a page up behind it if you wanted to see some lines. We have our 8 ESV maps on the semi-gloss paper. Not quite glossy, but maybe a hair bit of shine. And they include topography and distance and routes and that sort of thing. In muted colors. I've always liked these maps. I would like to see an index to maps. It would be a little easier to read, but it's not bad. Alright, so let's take a look at our size. I need to get my other one here. So we have 6 3/4 by almost 10 by 1 3/4. And it weighs 3 pounds, 1.5 ounces. And for comparison, of course, we have to compare the original ESV Preaching Bible in verse by verse. They were about the same size. It does not include a concordance. The leather on this one is a little thicker and shinier. I actually like this leather better than this leather. The paper is almost the same, almost identical. The main difference, they're both 36 GSM. The main difference in the paper is that the paragraph is slightly rough, while the verse by verse is slightly coated. Maybe it's a semi-coat. I don't know that for sure, but I do know they're both 36 GSM. And then, of course, the text is about the same size. This one might have a touch more space between the lines. It's kind of hard to tell, though. They have the same number of words per line, 14 words. Of course, this one is better for reading, in my opinion. I don't have any issues preaching from a verse by verse or from a paragraph, either one. If I had to choose one, I would go paragraph simply because that looks better to me. This doesn't, but that's okay. This is more of a presentation Bible. This is more of a reading Bible. That's my opinion. But here's how they compare. Kind of difficult to compare them, but we have verse by verse here, paragraph here. Next, we have the ESV Verse by Verse Reference Bible from Crossway. I like this Bible. It's thinner, and it is a double column rather than a single column, which I like better. I guess kind of just depends on the purpose. I do find the Verse by Verse Preaching Bible a little bit easier to read, simply because it seems to be line matched better, as you can see in this one. The paper in the verse by verse reference feels thicker to me. I kind of like this paper better than this paper, but I like this one good enough. I find the other paper easier to turn. There's how they compare. So we have the verse by verse preaching Bible and the verse by verse reference Bible. And of course I have to compare to the Cambridge Topaz. This is one of the few verse by verse ESVs out there. And it has about the same footprint, just noticeably thinner. A lot more elegant leather. That's a lot thicker leather, a nicer grain. And by nicer, I mean it just looks better. It looks elegant. It feels better. It's also more expensive. This is a made in Netherlands by Royal Youngblood Bible versus a made in China Bible. It's a good quality made in China Bible, but you can tell the difference. The Topaz has a larger font and a darker font. The Topaz has 28 GSM Indopaque paper with titanium pigment, which improves opacity. Now, it does have a little bit more show-through than the Crossway, but the main reason for that is not because of the paper being thinner. It is a little bit of that, of course, but this font is enough darker that you can notice the difference. So let's see how they compare. So that's my quick look at the ESV Preaching Bible Verse by Verse Edition. I'd like to thank Crossway for sending me this several months ago, actually, and I've been using it ever since. I enjoy it. Do I recommend it? I do, but not at the manufacturer's suggested retail price. It's a little high for that price, $249. If it were made in the Netherlands, I would say it's worth that price, but being made in China, I don't feel that it's worth that. I do think it would be worth buying when you get it somewhere like Christian Book or Amazon or Evangelical Bible, somewhere where you can get it a lot cheaper than the manufacturer's suggested retail price. I don't think it's worth that much, but I do like this Bible a lot. I would like to see it do well. So if I was preaching from ESV, I would have no issues preaching from this Bible. I enjoyed preaching from it. I enjoyed reading from it. Although for reading, I do prefer the paragraph, and I can preach from paragraph, no problem. But I do like preaching from this one. I would like to see poetry still in a poetic setting, but that's just me being picky. I would like to see letters indented, like in Ezra. Nothing stands out. So that's a letter. But now it does tell me it's a letter. So, I mean, you got that. You just can't look at the text and get any visual cues. But that's okay. It doesn't have to. It's just a presentation Bible, and that's fine. Has a little bit of space for notes, so you can add your own references, add some word studies, but it's not so much that it makes it a large Bible. It doesn't feel like a large Bible at all. It's not a Bible I would carry around with me. It's not a Bible I would use to visit another church, but to take it to my church and preach from, no trouble at all. I enjoy it. So that's a quick look at the ESV Preaching Bible Verse by Verse Edition in goatskin from Crossway. Thanks.